Yeah, so a couple questions there. The first one, is there any connection that we've identified between the reopening of schools and deaths at long-term care facilities? And I think that the short answer is that no, we haven't seen any clear connection. With that said, however, we know, and I want to tie both of these back to the community, we know that what happens in the community in terms of community transmission is going to impact both schools and long-term care facilities, right? So we've been it's been good that over the summer we've seen such a dramatic decrease in the number of people dying from COVID-19, and so the number of deaths from COVID-19 continues to be low in New Hampshire. But certainly we remain concerned with anything that happens in the community subsequently impacting not only schools but also long-term care facilities. So I'm sort of redirecting the flow diagram there, if you will. Regarding your second question about the increases that we've seen in some of the southern parts of the state in Nashua and also in Manchester, I want to go back to what I think the commissioner mentioned, and one of the things that I had brought up in some of the opening remarks, which is the highest risk activities here for spreading COVID-19 really are going to be the uncontrolled social gatherings and the social environments where you have multiple people being brought together. Those are the crowds, those are the gatherings where people may be in close confined spaces, in close contact with one another. Those are really going to be the highest risk activities where we have seen, not necessarily just in New Hampshire, but around the country, we have seen COVID be able to spread very, very easily, what we call super spreader events. And so if there's one thing I think to focus on around controlling community transmission, it's trying to encourage people to limit those types of gatherings. And it's there's not one particular type. It's not necessarily churches or birthday parties or weddings, or there are multiple situations where people can find themselves in close contact with other people, in crowds or large gatherings and indoor confined spaces. And so a lot of the guidance that we have out there really is focused on implementing multiple layers of protection to prevent those kind of super spreader events. That's not just cloth face masks, although cloth face masks are one of the ways to minimize risk. It's social distancing. It's avoiding the crowded spaces to begin with. If people are conducting group activities, have them outdoors where there's good ventilation, where risk is minimized. So really the focus on controlling the spread of COVID-19 needs to be on implementation of all of these measures, not just one measure versus the other. Thanks.